So now if just say I want to automate my report, because I have been using this XLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, and I have to do the if formula and I have to do the conditional formatting. So in this case, what if just say I want to automate my report? So whenever there's everyone, I just change the source, I just change the file, I can actually automate my report. So how I can actually do this using Power Query. So now let us look at our report. So now we do have the stock in, and we also have another report called the stock out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Power Query to not only to do the VLOOKUP, but also to do the performance, to do the analysis, and to bring the remark, and more importantly, every month when I change the file, it will be automated accordingly. So what I need to do is, first thing is I press Ctrl N to create a new file, and then what I do is I go to data. Once I go to data, there is an icon called get data. So in the section of get and transform data, I click get data, and then what I need to do is I need to choose from file. Once I choose from file, what I need to do is I need to go to Excel workbook. So why? Because this is the Excel file that we need to import. So I click this, and then it will take some time to load, and then eventually it will ask us which file we want to choose. So I'm going to choose here December, and I want to choose the file name of stock in. So I click this and I press import. So once I press import, you will notice that it will take some time to connect, and then eventually a big box will appear. So let me click this. So this is the file that I want to choose. All this data over here, it has the quantities and so on. And what I do is I just click this and I want to load to. So basically we can actually load to table, pivot table report, pivot chart, only create connection. So I only want to create connection. I don't want to load as a table or pivot table, just a connection only. And I press OK. So the moment I press OK, so now we do have a stock in connection over here. Next, I want to do the same thing for stock out. So I click get data from file, from Excel workbook, and then I choose the stock out. So once I choose stock out, I press import, and then after that a box will appear, and then I click stock out, and then I want to do the same thing because I want to just to load to connection only. So I want to create only create connection. So only create connection, and I press OK. So now we do have two database, two queries, which is stock in and stock out. So what I need to do next is I want to merge these two tables. So I click get data, I click combine queries. Combine queries is the place where we can merge or we append. But I want to merge because sometimes we use VLOOKUP and XLOOKUP. But this case, I want to merge because we have the same common column. So I'm going to click here stock in, and I'm going to click here stock out. So now we have the stock in and stock out. And then what I need to do is I need to select the common column. I select this column and I select this column. So here they'll show selection matches 782 out of 782, and I press OK. So once I press OK, you will notice that it will load to Power Query Editor. So in this case, of course, we do have the first database, but we don't have the stock out. We do have the stock in, but we don't have the stock out. So what I can do is I'll just click here to expand, and then what I only want to know is the quantities. So I untick this, I select quantities, and I untick this so that we don't want the original name. So now here we have quantities and quantities 1. So what you can do is you can actually rename this. You can actually put this as stock in, and then you can actually put this as stock out. So now we have stock in and stock out. And then what we want to do is maybe we want to remove other columns. I go here, choose columns. So what if just say I only want the columns to appear? So I click here choose columns. So once I click choose columns, what I need to do is I untick all. I want the item code, I want the item, I want the stock in, I want the stock out, and the other columns I remove. So now you see we have the item code, item, stock in, stock out. So what I'm going to do next is I want to make a comparison. So I just click this column first and I press shift column. So now we have highlighted this column, and I go to add column, standard, and I choose subtract. So once I click subtract, here will show us the remaining inventories or the difference. So I'm going to rename this as difference. And then what I'm going to do next is I want to actually to calculate the stock out of the stock in. So I click this, I press shift, and then what I do is I go to standard, and then I click percent off. So once I click percent off, it will show me in this format whereby it is 83%. And then what I can do is I can actually put here in a decimal number or a whole number also can. So whole number means this is 83%. So 83%, 24% and whatnot. And then I can also just rename this. So maybe I'll just rename this as performance. And then I can also add another column to show the remark. So what I'm going to do is I'll just go to add column and custom column. And then what I'm going to do is I want to put here the name as remarks. And then I go here, so I put here if. So if just say the performance I insert here is actually greater than, I put here greater than 50, then the name should be good sales, else it should be average sales. So if you notice over here, there's no syntax error. So meaning to say, if just say this numbers is greater than 50, then it is a good sales. Otherwise, it's an average sales. So I press OK. So now you notice, now we have this data over here. And then you can actually put here as a text. So it becomes a text. And then I go to home, I press close and load. So once I press close and load, it will become a table format, as you can see over here. But now what if just say I have a next month report, a subsequent one. So do I need to redo again? In this case, not necessary. What we need to do is we go to this cursor over here and press right click, and then we go to edit. So once we go to edit, what is our next task is we will go to Power Query Editor. So if just say we want to change the file, we go to data source settings. Once we go to data source settings, we click the stock in and press change source. So once we press change source, it will ask us which file we want to choose. So this time I want to choose the file of January. So I click here stock in January and I press import, and then it will show here January and I press OK. So automatically it will change to stock in January. And then I go to stock out, I change the source, and this time I want to change the source for stock out. Instead of December, I choose January. So stock out January and I press import. So now you will notice when I press OK, so we do have stock in for January, stock out for January, and I press close. So once I press close, I go to close and load. So what I need to do is I go to the query and then I click refresh. So once I click refresh, you will notice that there are changes being made. So now let us do again one more time to understand better. So I go here, I press right click. So once I press right click and edit. So once I press edit, it will go to Power Query Editor. And then after that, what it will do is I need to press data source settings, and then a box will appear. So stock in, I select this, I change source. So instead of January, I need to choose February. So I select this. That means I go back to the file, I choose February, and then I choose stock in February, and then I press import. So once I press import, I press OK. So now you'll see stock in February. I do the same. I go to change source, and then what I need to do is I just click here, and then I choose stock out February. I press import, and then I press OK, and then after that I press close, and then I press close and load. So once I press close and load, it will go back to the Excel file. I go to query and I click refresh. You will notice that the numbers has changed automatically.